Hello guys, welcome back to my channel. Today in this video I'm going to be focusing on talking about draw power. Now I have a list or a set of cards that I use to make any deck, gives any deck more power to draw. Now by far the best card that I've seen that draws, it's actually Foolish Burial, which ain't even here. So we're going to search Foolish Burial. If I could spell it. Foolish. Let's just go with Foolish. Foolish. This guy right here. Foolish Burial is crazy. When Foolish Burial, you can actually draw a lot of cards with this if you don't get ashed. Ash usually messes up your draw, so you want a deck that has a lot of draw power, so that if you get ashed, you can draw again and keep drawing and drawing and just keep going with the flow. But Foolish Burial, with the adventure token, draws you about 5 cards. So what you want to do is you activate Foolish Burial. And then you send to the graveyard Water Enchantress. Activate its effect in the graveyard, and that draws you a Rite of Armisia to your hand. Rite of Armisia, you activate that card, and then you get a token. So you get a summon. You get a draw and a summon. And when you activate this, it also puts Faithful Adventure. It sets Faithful Adventure on your spell or trap zone. So once Faithful Adventure is on your spell and trap zone, you can go ahead and normal summon any monster that is in your hand. And when you normal summon, it triggers this, and you can draw a equip card, which most people run the Draco back. So you add the Draco back to your hand, and it's going to tell you, do you want to equip it to your token, or do you want to put it to your hand? You always choose to go to your hand. And once you got it in your hand, you activate Faithful Adventure, and you pull out the Griffin Rider, and you put it in your hand. When you add the Griffin Rider, it's going to tell you to discard 1 card in the graveyard. You're going to discard the Draco back, and when you discard the Draco back, you can then activate its effect on the graveyard and attach it to one of your tokens. So you're going to attach the Draco back to your token, and you're gonna have the Griffin Rider in your hand. And if you have a token and you have the if you have a token, you can special summon the Griffin Rider. So then once the Griffin Rider and the token are on the field, you now have 1 negate and destroy. So this all happened with Foolish Burial. So you got Foolish Burial, and you're able to draw use 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 cards just with Foolish Burial. That's how powerful the adventure token is. It's pretty crazy. So that's your draw power. So by far the best draw power is that one right there. Alright, so the most common draw power in the TCG is the Maxi. Now, all these drawing cards are weak to Ash, but if you have a deck that has a lot of draw power, Ash is gonna be like a joke. You'll be able to Ash through anything. So let's examine Maxi. Maxi is a monster, and it helps you draw, which is crazy because if you have no monsters or you need a monster on the field, um, then Maxi is a good way to draw. The only problem with Maxi is like I said, it's susceptible to Ash, and it's also weak towards Called by the Grave. Called by the Grave can actually cancel your Maxi, which kind of sucks. But see, you could target one monster from your opponent's graveyard and banish it. So if your opponent has Ash or Maxi on the field, or I mean, if your opponent has Ash or Called by the Grave in their hand, then they're going to be able to stop your Maxi. Which sometimes they have Ash and sometimes they have um, Called by the Grave. But if they don't have that, you're in the clear. All right, so next we're gonna see another monster, and it's a Dogmatica Ecclesia the Virtuous. You can special summon this. This is a pretty crazy card because you can special summon this card, and you could special summon this card only if there is a special summon monster from the extra deck on the field on your turn. So if your opponent has an extra deck monster on the field, which most of the times they do, you could special summon Dogmatica Ecclesia and you won't waste your normal summon. So once you normal summon Ecclesia, you have the option to activate its effect, which will search for a Dogmatica card from your deck. Usually it's used to search Fleur de Lis from the deck, and then you could also special summon Fleur de Lis if there's a special summon monster from the extra deck. And if these two are on the field, you can negate the effect of one monster. So not only does this card, when you special summon it or normal summon it, lets you draw this specific card. You could also get this one, but most people get this one. These kind of work in a combo right here. Alright, so you can normal summon this. The only downside with this one is it can get ashed. You can't call by the grave it, but they can use imperm on this. They can use a negate. They can use forbidden droplet. Anything that negates a monster effect, even skill drain, anything that negates a monster effect. What is that? Effect Veiler can stop you from getting this in your hand. So it has a lot of drawbacks, but it's pretty cool. Also, if you activate this effect, you're locked out of the extra deck. So you need to know that if you choose to use this, if you use the effect, you can't you can't get into the extra deck that turn. But if you summon it, if you special summon it, but you don't activate the effect, then you can get into the the extra deck. But you're not going to get this one in your hand. Alright. Card of Destruction. Card of Destruction is actually a -1. But you can mulligan your your hand. Like let's say you have a bunch of bricks. You can set and use the things that are not bricks, and then use a Card of Destruction on the bricks that you have. It's going to send those to the graveyard, plus all the cards that your opponent has, and you both are going to draw the same amount of cards. Since you're going to use this card, you're going to have -1 card. So it's kind of like a mulligan, like a magical mallet almost. Upstart Goblin is a draw 1 card, but your opponent gets 1,000 life points. The crazy thing about Upstart Goblin is you can activate it more than one time. So if you have an Upstart Goblin, if you have 3 of them, you can use 3. But your opponent's going to gain 3,000 life points. Reinforcement of the Army is a draw card, but it's more specifically only adds a level 1 or level 4 warrior monster from your deck to your hand. But obviously it's a powerful card because it's at 1. Terraforming is also a drawing card. If you use field spells, if you use a lot of field spells, this is the best one to use. If you don't use field spells, you can use this field spell right here, Chicken Game. Is a field spell and it gets you to draw 1 card. So I would use Terraforming to get Chicken Game, activate Chicken Game, and draw 1 card. Cool thing about Chicken Game is that when it's in the field and your opponent draws a card and doesn't know about Chicken Game, and let's say you have an open field and they're ready to just take you out, if they have more life points than you do, it tells you right here, wait, let me see right here. The player with the lowest life points takes no damage. So that's the first sentence, right? So that means, let's say your opponent is at 6,000 life points and you're at 5,000, and they have a monster that has 5,000, and they attack you, you're not going to get any damage, no matter how many monsters they got, unless they destroy this card, which you see the second option right here is to destroy this card. You pay 1,000 life points, you draw 1 card, or you destroy this card, or your opponent gains 1,000 life points. It's up to you what to do. So these things have fine print, and it's good for you to learn. All right, so next on our list is Pot of Avarice. There's 2 types of draw cards: pot cards and jar cards. Pots are spell cards, and jars are trap cards, like Jar of Greed. And then you got Pot of Desires, Pot of Extravagance, Pot of whatever that is, and Pot of Acquisitiveness. And then you have Jar of Avarice, Jar of Greed. See, so there's jar and pot cards. So the first pot card is Pot of Avarice. Target 5 monsters in your graveyard, shuffle all 5 into the deck, and then draw 2 cards. Drawing 2 cards is extremely great if you can do it. If you can draw 2 cards, that's great. The downside of Pot of Avarice is if you draw this on your first turn, and you don't have 5 monsters in your graveyard, it's a brick until you get 5 monsters in your graveyard. Now let's say you get 5 monsters in your graveyard on your first turn, and then you activate it, but it gets ashed, then that's also a problem. So if you have a deck that just throws monsters like crazy into your graveyard, no matter how many bricks you have in your hand, then Pot of Avarice is good for you. So then you can draw 2 more cards, and drawing 2 cards is pretty damn good. For the deck that I use, I hardly throw that many monsters in the graveyard, so Pot of Avarice is usually a brick going first hand on your first hand. So it's a no for me. For decks that have a lot of dark monsters, you have Allure of Darkness, and you can draw 2 cards, then banish 1 dark monster from your hand. Or if you do not have any, you have to send your entire hand to the graveyard. Now, if you run a lot of dark monsters, this is good for you. But if you only have like 1 or 2 dark monsters, this is not a really good card for you. So that's why I don't run it, because I don't run that many dark monsters. Cup of Ace is draw 2 cards, or it's a coin toss draw card. If it's heads, you draw 2 cards. If it's tails, your opponent draws 2 cards. This card is half good, like 50% good and 50% bad. I don't use it because if it goes tails, your opponent has a 2 card advantage, and half of the time your opponent's going to get 2 cards. So in a really bad situation, you're going to give the card advantage to your opponent, and that's just going to make things worse. So Cup of Ace, I don't really use it that much. Pot of Duality. You could excavate the 3 top cards of your deck and add 1 to your hand. So it's a draw card, and you get to choose out of 3 cards which card you want. Downside with Pot of Duality is that you will not be able to special summon after you activate this card, or during or before you activated this card. So you're locked out of special summoning, and all decks need to special summon. Almost every damn deck every deck except for Fluanderies needs to special summon. So this Pot of Duality is gold for Fluanderies players, and it's probably used, but it's probably at 3 for Fluanderies. So it's good for that deck and only that deck. If you do not special summon monsters that much, or if you just summon 1 monster, then Pot of Duality is for you. But I don't use it because I have to special summon a lot. One Day of Peace is at 1. This is a good and a bad card. Number 1, good thing is you draw a card. Bad thing is your opponent draws 1 card. Second bad thing is, second good thing is that you're not going to get any damage for your turn, or you're not going to be able to deal damage to your opponent, and he's not going to be able to deal damage to you on his turn. So it has those 2 drawbacks, but those are the only drawbacks. Alright, so Pot of Dichotomy I hardly ever use. It says at the start of your main phase 1, target 3 monsters with different types in your graveyard. Shuffle all 3 into the deck, then draw 2 cards. You cannot conduct your battle phase the turn you activate this card. Now, I don't know how easy it is to do that, but you just need 3 monsters with different types. But for my deck, I usually just use 1 type of monster, like spellcasters. So it doesn't work good with my deck. But drawing 2 cards is always good. If you have a deck that has different types of monsters, that's good. Now, Pot of Desires, a lot of people think Pot of Desires is a good card. And it's only good if you run a lot of threes, a lot of 3-ofs, and you have a 60 card deck. So if you have a 60 card deck and you run a lot of 3-ofs, then Pot of Desires is pretty good. But basically you banish 10 cards from the top of your deck face down and you draw 2 cards, which is alright. And it has no other downsides. The only downside is that you're banishing 10 cards. But if you banish an essential card that you need, you're screwed. But you could also use Pot of Desires, a combination with Necroface. Necroface. Let's see. Necroface is a monster, and if this card is normal summon, shuffle all banished cards into the deck. This card gains 100 attack for each card shuffled into the main deck by this effect. So if you use Pot of Desire and then you normal summon Necroface, those cards that you banished will go back to your deck once you normal summon Necroface. But you normal summoned this card and you wasted your normal summon. So zombies don't really help me, but if you have a zombie deck that works well with those zombies, then you can use those two together. Next we have Pod of Extravagance. Pot of Extravagance is also a draw 2 card, but you get a choice of drawing 1 card or drawing 2 cards. But you have to activate this card at the beginning of your main phase 1. So you can't set up any negates, you can't set up nothing. You have to actually just do this at the beginning of your main phase, and most likely if your opponent has negates set up or ash in their hand, you're not going to be able to actually use Pot of Extravagance. And let's say you actually do get away with drawing 2 cards. At the bottom it says you cannot draw any cards by card effects after that. So you're locked out of drawing any other cards, and it's too much of a risk, and also you got to banish 6 cards from your extra deck, which extra deck basically wins games nowadays. So Pot of Extravagance I don't like. This card I use Card of Fate. This one's pretty crazy. Each player chooses 1 card from their deck, which you choose the card that you want, and then they combine it with 4 additional random cards chosen from their deck by their opponent, then randomly selects 1 of 5 cards to reveal add to their hands. Shuffle the rest back into the deck, so you can only activate 1 Card of Fate per turn. So crazy thing about Card of Fate is you get to draw 1 card, but you have a 1 in 5 chance of drawing the card you want. So let's say you want some fusion or polymerization, or you want to get the adventure token, Rite of Armesier, or you want to get a Nibiru, whatever card you actually want, you have a 1 in 5 chance of getting that card. And so does your opponent. So when you draw 1 card, you have the 1 out of 5 chance of getting the card you want, and they got the 1 out of 5 chance of getting the card they chose. Alright, so next draw card is Nadir Servant. Nadir Servant works with Dogmatica. So usually Nadir Servant is used with this guy right here. Titanic Clad, the Ash Dragon. So what you do is you activate Nadir Servant, you banish Titanic Clad, the Ash Dragon, and you send it to your graveyard, and then you add Dogmatica Ecclesia to your hand, special or normal summon it, and then you get Fluanderies, and then at the end of your at the end of your uh, turn, it says right here, if this card is in your graveyard because it was sent there this turn, you can add to your hand or special summon one Dogmatica monster or one Fallen of Albaz from your deck. You can only use this effect once. So usually you could special summon Dogmatica Maximus in defense, or you could add it to your hand. So this Nadir Servant actually gets you 1, 2, 3 cards. So that is a crazy card right there. 3 cards on your field. It could special summon 3 cards. This one, and this one. The only problem is when you activate the Dogmatica effects, you cannot go into the extra deck. Okay, next card is Triple Tactic Talents. Usually, let's say you activate Upstart Goblin and you have Triple Tactic Talents in your hand, and your opponent has no negates. You activate Upstart Goblin and it gets ashed. That just activated Triple Tactic Talents. Now you can draw 2 cards, take control of 1 monster, or look at your opponent's hand and choose 1 card from it and shuffle it into the deck. Now, most people use it to draw 2 cards or take control of 1 monster. So let's say we draw 2 cards. So once this gets ashed, then you can draw 2 cards with a Triple Tactic Talents. The problem is if your opponent doesn't activate a monster effect, like let's say Nibiru or Effect Veiler or Ash or Maxi, then this thing will not activate. And most of the times they activate monster effects during the battle phase, not the main phase. So it's kind of a dud sometimes, but it works sometimes. So next one is Pot of Prosperities. You banish 3 or 6 cards from your extra decks, and then you can reveal 6 or 3 cards from your deck, and you can choose 1. And at the end of the turn, you cannot draw cards by effects or the turn you activated this card. So you get 1 card, and after that you can't draw any damn cards. So that's horrible. I don't like Pot of Prosperity. But if there's just 1 card that you really need that's gonna end the whole game, then that's good. Alright, this card right here, Top Share, does not draw a card. It just reveals a card and places it on the top of your deck. A lot of people don't know about Top Share right now because it's a pretty new card. But let's say you have a specific card in your deck, right? You have a specific card in your deck that you want, right? And in your hand, you have an Upstart Goblin. Let's say you have 2 Upstart Goblins, right? You have 2 Upstart Goblins and 1 Top Share. Alright, so what you do is you activate Top Share and you reveal 1 card from your deck. So let's say you want to get a Fusion Destiny. It could be any card in your deck. This guy. You want this card, right? What it's going to do is it's just going to reveal this card to your opponent, and it's going to place it on the top of your deck. And then your opponent is going to reveal a card and place it on top of their deck. So once you did that, that's all this card does. And you can only activate it once per turn. Now you activate Upstart Goblin, and you draw one card. Guess what card goes to your hand? Fusion Destiny. So that could be with any card you want that ever exists. So so Top Share is pretty crazy if you have a lot of drawing power. You could also use it with Chicken Game. You could activate Top Share, then draw one card. All right. So next card is this one right here, Awakening of the Possessed. So this is specific to Charmers and Familiar Possessed deck, but other decks can use it. Decks that use Fairy Tale Luna or Fairy Tale Snow. Let me see. Any fairy tale. If you use a fairy tale, see how the attack is 1850 and it's a spellcaster? Any spellcaster that is 1850 attack and is a spellcaster, that one. Sleeper, Rayla, and Rochka. But it's used for the familiar possessed because they have 1850. So you got Hita, Dark the Dark Charmer, familiar possessed Dark. It also works with all the Charmer link monsters. So this would be able, if you link summon Lina and you have this on the field, you will be able to draw a card. It says monsters you control gain 300 attack for each different attribute you control. Charmer and familiar possessed monsters you control cannot be destroyed by card effects. If a spellcaster monster with 1850 original attack is normal summon, special summon to your field, draw one card. You can only activate this effect. So it has a bonus for the Charmers. Since Lina is a Charmer, if your opponent tries to destroy her, it just won't destroy. Also works with the Dark Charmer, the Water Charmer, the Familiar Possessed area, the Lina Familiar Possessed, and Hita, the Fire Charmer, Alsa, not this one, the Wind Charmer, and then Wind Charmer Link Monster, Alsa Earth Charmer. So you summon any of these. Most people use Dark. If you have Dark in your extra deck and you have this one, just have this set this one, and then when you special summon Dark, you draw one card. And you can do that if you summon or special summon one of those monsters, you get a draw. So you could, let's say you normal summon Fairy Tale, which is gonna let you add another card. So you can add either a familiar possessed or you can add a Fairy Tale monster. So that's this one gives you draw power every turn. Shared Ride is a quick spell card, and for every time your opponent adds a card from their deck to their hand or their graveyard to their hand, except by drawing them, you immediately draw one card. So this is good and this is bad, cause let's say your opponent draws a card, and it says let's say he activates Upstart Goblin and draws one card. This is not going to give you a card. It's only going to give you a card when he activates, like, let's say this Dogmatica and then he adds this card. It's not a draw, it's an add. So it has to be an add, not a draw. So for the rest of the turn, each time your card adds from the main deck or the graveyard to the hand, except by drawing them, you immediately draw one card. So they have to add a card, not draw a card. Next is Pot of Exquisiteness. Target 3 banished monsters, shuffle all 3 into the deck, then draw one card. You can only activate one pause. So that's it. 3 of your banished monsters, shuffle into the deck, draw one card. It's good to it's good if your monsters get banished and you need them back in the deck, and plus you get to draw one card. But if you have no cards that get banished that you don't need to get back in the deck, then you can't use this. So it's only for cards that get banished a lot. Jar of Greed, draw one card, but it's a trap card. This one's pretty good. I use this one, Jar of Avarice. Target 5 cards in your graveyard. They don't have to be monsters, just need to be 5. And shuffle them into your deck, and then draw one card. So that's pretty good right there. And Metaverse is like terraforming. You just add one card or activate it, but it's a trap. And that's basically it. Those are the cards you use to draw. Like, some of them will not work good together. Let's say you have this one and this one. First, you have to activate this one. And once you activate this one will no longer be able to work. This one will no longer be able to work. So there's some drawbacks. So I wouldn't use this one with anyone. The ones that I do use is, I don't use these right here. I don't use this one. I don't use this one. I don't use this one. I don't use this one or this one or this one. I don't use warriors. I use all these. All these will work good with each other. Well, let me see this one right here. And this one, maybe not this one, but they'll work together. So all these would work together and they will not mess each other up. So Maxi, Fairtail Luna, the Dogmatica package, Nadir Servant, Triple Tactic Talent, Chicken Game, Awaken and the Possess. Those all work good with me. So hopefully you learned something. And there's no excuse that your deck is not ash proof or draw or has any draw power. So that's basically a little lesson on draw power right there. Thank you guys for watching, and don't forget to follow and like and watch my other videos. Thank you.